grateful to be here clean and sober tonight. I was here in October to November of 2016. And I think what I'll do tonight with my story, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. But before getting into that part of it, I'll just give you a little bit of background about myself. I was born in Morgantown, West Virginia, October 3rd, 1950. You do the math, that makes me 71 tonight. A baby boomer. It was a university town. I don't know if anyone is here from West Virginia, been to Morgantown or not. It's the home of West Virginia University. A great place to grow up. Went to school there, went grade school. I could walk to school right up the street. It wasn't a situation where I walked uphill 6 miles, no shoes, bloody feet when I get there. It wasn't one of those. I'm not going to tell you that, but it was a nice middle class neighborhood. Went to junior high school. I could walk there. Morgantown High School, and went to West Virginia University and graduated from there. My parents really had great parenting. I'll get to that a little bit in a second. My dad was a World War II veteran. He served in Germany. Purple Heart, Bronze Star. He was a hero. He was my hero, and he taught us. He coached us. He brought us up the right way. My mother, she was a housewife until we got into till my brother and I got into junior high, and then she worked for the university at Women's Hall. And again, just a great mother. My brother, my younger brother, 4 years younger, really a good athlete, all state basketball, played college ball. He likes to say he couldn't do a lot of the things growing up because of me. Okay. But we're great friends. We're better friends now that I'm clean and sober than we ever were before. But as I mentioned, my parents, their parenting, they taught my brother and I. They weren't alcoholics. They drank, but they weren't alcoholics, so they wouldn't have known about the spiritual principles. I'm sure you all, I don't know if they're still giving these little cards out or not, but they taught my brother and I the spiritual principles growing up: honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, love, discipline, perseverance, awareness, and service. So they instilled that in us and gave us those values. And really, what I did right with a lot of the times, most of the time, was because of them. What I did wrong was on me. But they taught us to do the right thing, and I'll be forever grateful for them for the values and character that they instilled in my brother and I. And not that I always lived up to that. I certainly didn't, but they certainly taught us what the way to behave and grow. School, I was a good student. A's and B's, a decent athlete myself. I played basketball, baseball. We got to the state finals in baseball in 1 year, state semis another. So I did well in school until I got to the summer before my senior year, and that's when it wasn't my first drink, but that's when I really started drinking. I call that part of my life Rusty One. Okay, that's when I started, when I was 16, before my senior year in high school. Really, I started drinking and smoking cigarettes then. The other activity came later, but I thought it was cool. I thought it was my destiny, and it took me a long time Took me 50 years, actually. It didn't take me 50 years to realize it wasn't cool, but it took me a long time to realize that it wasn't. And when I'm not going to get into 50 years here of what it was like, because, well, first of all, I don't have the time. I'd have to spend the night. I've already done that. So, I'll give you a little bit of what it was like, and then move on from there. But my senior year, just everything started going south from there. It was the grades suffer, athletics suffer. There's a photo of me in our senior yearbook. I'm escorting the homecoming queen, looking, really looking nice. I wasn't drunk. Coat, tie, haircut. I was standing there, thinking, people with my hand in between my coat, thinking that, and people would think, oh, that's, he's looking dignified there. Well, actually, it's holding up a pint of bourbon, okay, out on the football field. So anyway, that a real proud moment. I'm being sarcastic, obviously, but that's in the yearbook. I can look back on that and think about that night. Really, because I mentioned a university town, I got to know a lot of college students that were in fraternities, college guys. It was a fraternity. So my whole summer before my senior year, I partied with them. It's really all I really cared about doing was getting to college and partying. School was absolutely not in my program. Joined a fraternity my freshman year. You've all probably seen the movie Animal House, I would imagine. Toga parties, that was us. Okay, I mean, I think we originated toga parties. So you got guys and girls, grape and grain, bed sheets. You got a kick-ass rhythm and blues band like Otis Day and the Knights. It wasn't them, but that's who was in the movie. Someone that good. I mean, it wasn't long before those bed sheets were coming off. But that's how we partied then. And I mentioned my mother working at Women's Hall. She was at Women's Hall at that time. And Monday morning, invariably, one of the girls there would come, oh, Mrs. V, you should have seen Rusty Saturday night, So I'm sure it wasn't a proud moment for her to hear those things either. Moving on from there, I mentioned started drinking before my senior year in high school with my best friend, still my best friend to this day. This is during our college years. I was in and out of college a good bit. It took me 9 years to get through, but this was one of the semesters when I was out and I had been working and saved up money. And he had spent the semester before on an exchange program in Colombia, South America. And he had sampled the goods there, okay? And I had saved up all this money. He says, well, why don't we go to Colombia? Great idea. This is the January of 1975. It was like the Wild West there. I mean, we got there. I'm skinny, red hair, white, pale. My friend looks like a movie star. Let's put it this way: we didn't look like the locals. All right, we pretty much stood out, but we were not in the least bit transparent in our activity. We realized how affordable the cocaine and the marijuana was, and we thought, well, maybe we get into the exporting business. And you've heard in this program about good ideas and that's not a good idea. Anyway, we moved from one town to another, and again, we'd have our own like personal valet, a personal guy. You see Americans, and then we had some cash, a good bit of cash actually, and he would take care of us for whatever our needs may be. So I'm in a hotel bar one night, one afternoon, drinking with this Texas oil man. Next thing I know, this guy comes in, goes, Policia, and holds up his badge. He goes, I want to go to your room. Okay, you could speak English. I don't know. My friend was in the room. He was in the shower. And at that time, the blow was in the shower and I could hear him flushing a couple ounces of coke down the toilet. He had a couple bags, we had a couple bags of weed in his shoes, and he was so calm, he just got out, got dressed, put his feet in his shoes. He didn't find anything. We were so lucky because I know we would have never made it back if they'd have found what we had. So that was our South America experience. We were on a plane to Miami the next day. We actually had with this, it was Interpol. He wanted to take us in so he could come back and do a more thorough search, even though he didn't find anything. There wasn't anything else to find, but we ended up paying him off. And at the time it was, I think we gave him a couple $100 each, like $400, which American cash, that was a lot of money, you know, like almost 50 years ago, particularly in Colombia, South America. Anyway, we were out of there. So from there, you know, got back at school and started bartending. Obviously, that wasn't a good idea either. I mean, for, you know, because as we talk about this being a progressive disease, it wasn't drinking all day, every day back in those days, but, you know, it was getting gradually more and more each day. So bartended for, I don't know, about 7 years, a local resort, conference center, country club, 2 champions, nice place, 200 rooms, big staff. We had 7 bartenders, 7 cocktail waiters, food waiters, banquet staff, the whole thing. And it was like, you know, 7 years of just, you know, just constant partying every day, every night, come back, do it again, no inhibitions, no drama, just roll with it. But towards the end of that time period, I got lucky and I met my wife. I had known her before, but we actually started dating then. When I say met her, I'd known her before, but not well. And we went out and we ended up running a bar in town. And, you know, I started to really, you know, pull it together then. And, you know, to this day, I'll be forever grateful to her because that we got married April 24th, 1982. It'd be 40 years now. And just grateful for the fact that she's always been there for me. I don't know how or why through some of the time period, but she has been. And like I said, I'll be forever grateful for that. But we ended up moving. I finally graduated from college. She had already graduated. She was from Washington, D.C., just outside. And we moved to Annapolis, Maryland. And she worked for the Superior Court of District of Columbia. I bartended for a year or two and then got into real estate and had a successful run, had a good career in real estate. I managed my drinking. It was, you know, we talk about controlled drinking. I guess it was. It's not that I drank every night, but I didn't get loaded every night. I couldn't sell property. I couldn't sell homes if I'm walking around drunk, if I'm drinking while I'm working. And it was, you know, working a lot, you know, a good bit. 7 days a week pretty much, and just whatever it took. So I was able to manage it during that time period. I did have certainly a lot of partying going on in the real estate industry with other realtors, other agents, and because that was just the nature of the business. Actually, I did get a DUI one night. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Baltimore or not, but the Key Bridge, which goes over the harbor and the Patapsco River. I was out playing golf, just loaded, wasted, and came back, and there's a toll booth there, and I just waved at him and drove right on through. Okay, got to the top of the bridge, got pulled, they took me down. They had a jail right below the bridge, and they booked me in. And then lo and behold, I was there in a little, little holding cell, so to speak. This guy comes in. I'd sold him a home. We were going to closing the next day. I said, "Oh, if you can, what timing?" I thought, "I'm going to get out of this again," but I didn't. So, but you can imagine me sitting there drunk as hell. This guy, my buyer, comes in and said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" He said, "Did you always do this before you sell me a home the next day?" But anyway, that was just one little sidebar of my real estate career, and I'll move on from that. But I functioned pretty well during that time period. Get a drink of water here. Excuse me. So what happened from there is we had purchased a lot down outside of Tryon in a country club, in a golf course community, and we had bought a lot there. And when we were able to retire, we were going to build a home and move there. And that's what we did. And this was in 2006. And so when we moved down here in May of 2006, 16 years ago. And for me, it was like going from a fast-paced career, every day working, things rolling like that, making good money, to almost a dead stop. And at that point, it was not right at the beginning, but it really, when I mentioned progressive, it really got to that point. Over the next several years, it just kept getting worse and worse, because I didn't, I could only play so much golf, but I didn't do anything else. I just, it got to the point where it was all day, every day, all in, all the time. I mean, it was insanity. Just doing the same thing over and over again. But I knew what the result was going to be. I didn't expect anything different. I knew what was going to happen. We talk about the first step, being powerless over alcohol. My life had become unmanageable. I knew I was powerless. I knew I wasn't in the program at the time, obviously, but I knew then that I was powerless over alcohol. What life did I have? It wasn't much of one. So this went on, and it kept getting worse, because there was a series of death. My parents passed away. My father, my wife's father, within a couple of months. Then my mother, then my wife's mother, who had lived with us for 20 years, and I loved her dearly, and she passed away, and everything just kept getting worse and worse and worse throughout this grief. And that's one thing that I'm careful of today, is to prepare myself, because it's going to happen, and I don't want to have that trigger happen to me again, to pick back up again. Then not the friend that I went to Columbia with, but another very close friend, an alcoholic, not in the program, committed suicide, shot and killed himself. That was 2015. And from that point forward, it was a total deep, dark, downward spiral. Until, and this is what I get to the point of what happened. And the date, I was so sick that my liver was so bad, and it's okay today, thank God. But it was so bad then, my numbers were so off. I was so jaundiced, I was so yellow, I looked like a Waffle House sign. And my wife knew this, and she got me to my primary care doctor under the guise of low blood pressure, which I did have. He didn't even get to take my blood. When I got in there, he didn't even take my blood pressure. He goes straight to labs, get your blood work done. And they had, came back within 24 hours, and he got me to a gastroenterologist down, because we live in Tryon now. I think I mentioned that when we retired, we moved to Tryon, close by here, at 25 minutes door to door, actually, which was really a saving grace for me when I came to Pavillon. But got to me a gastroenterologist in Spartanburg. And he looked at my labs and looked at me and he says, and I'm going to tell you 4 things. He goes, 1, you need to stop drinking. 2, you need to get help. 3, you need to pray. Or 4, you're going to get liver cancer. You're going to die soon. And it's not going to be a pretty death. That was September 10th, 2016. That was my moment. That was my date of sobriety. I stopped then. And within a month, I was here at Pavillon. As I said, I was here in October, November of 2016, that same year in primary care. But that's what happened. And moving forward to what it's like now, talking about my recovery now, I'll start with the gratitude that I have, the way I feel now, the way I don't have to worry about getting up and worrying about what I did last night, that I'm not hungover. And I think, the things that maybe some of you have experienced. Where's my car? Did I wreck? I'm not, what did I do? Who do I owe an apology to? Grateful that I feel good. I'm grateful to my wife. I mentioned that. My brother, my parents, my mother-in-law, my friends, my family. All these people stood by me. They were always there for me. They didn't have to, but they did. I'll be forever grateful for all of that. For Pavillon, for what I learned here, the tools that they gave me, I was able to get well. I came in here jaundiced like that. I mean, I was so bad, the guys in my group, the men and women, they would have to get my lunch tray and take it to the table and sit it down and then pull it back up and take it to the line where, you drop your trays. I was able to get well. I was able to get the tools, the foundation for this program, and be able to get into recovery. And so many things help me in recovery. I mentioned the 12-step spiritual principles. I mean, those are invaluable to me. I mean, I wish everybody practiced those, but they do. They help me to do the right thing. They build my character, and they manifest a good behavior for me. The 12 the steps, they're not complicated, but it takes an effort. It takes an effort to work this program, and I have to try, and I continue to have to try. But to work the steps and revisit the steps, to sponsor people. If someone asks me to sponsor, to reach out and help to do what I can. If I can help them, that's great. It helps me too. It helps me to revisit the steps and to go through the steps with that person. Meetings. I mean, I'll probably go to 4, sometimes 5 meetings a week. I go to different meetings. I of course have a home group. I go to different meetings and have different people and experience it that way. So that's important to me. I'll chair meetings. I'll do service work for the meetings. All of it, all this goes into it. It's, I mentioned the steps. They're not complicated. Yeah, as you probably heard, this is a simple program for complicated minds. But just continue to work the steps. The first 164 pages of the big book, still relevant to this day. I reread that. We read it in our meeting. We go through one day a week in my home group. We'll go through the big book throughout the year. The community, I'll do some community service. I'll have outlets outside of the program. My life experiences outside the program. I do other things. I stay busy. I play golf. I go to the gym. I read. I try to stay active. A big key for me is maintaining my emotional sobriety, to try to have a balance, to not get too up here or too down here, just to remember to be careful, to pay attention to what I'm saying, what I'm doing, and to be able, if I have to take that little pause sometimes and be able to respond and not react. And it's great. It's great to have that sort of a balanced approach and hopefully keep that. I love to have peace of mind. Sometimes it's easy to attain that. It's harder to keep it. It's harder to retain that. That takes doing the right thing and doing the work and making the effort. But it's such a great feeling to have that peace of mind. Maintaining a connection with my higher power by practicing those principles. I'm able to do that, to maintain that connection, to ask for direction from my higher power, and thank my higher power and be grateful when I know I receive that direction. So these are some of the things that help me in my recovery, and I know I can't do this alone. I can't go this alone. And the program has given me that tools. Pavillon got me on the path that I am today, and I'm certainly glad that I was able to be here. And I mentioned Rusty 1. Well, the day of my sobriety, September 10th, 2016, that started Rusty 2. And I'll say this: I like Rusty 2 pretty well, because I never want to go back to Rusty 1 again. That's all I have. I wish all of you the very best and a great life moving forward.